I would request Dr. Rajendra Shende to please address the youth today, and he is the one who supported this Kalam Fellowship program. So I would request Dr. Rajendra Shende ji to please address the audience.
Thank you, Saurav. And what a pleasure it is to listen to my friend Ashok Mangotra. And I wish he would have called me just Raj rather than calling me Dr. Rajendra Shende. Today I feel nobody else is a doctor except Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. And I'm really honored to remember this extraordinary and inspiring figure who always had this towering and out-of-box thoughts. And I'm talking about this most loved president of India, late Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. I'm getting a little bit of emotional on the occasion of his 5th death anniversary. He left us, said goodbye to us in 2015. And I remember that day, Ashok calling me on a phone. I don't know where I was. I don't remember that. I only remember the sad times. And remembering him on this occasion of awarding the National Young Research Fellowships, I feel is the exactly right way to spend today. I'm therefore equally pleased that my organization, TERRE Policy Centre, making a small beginning in contributing in nurturing the researching curiosity of the youth. Youth has always looked at Dr. Kalam as a motivator par excellence. And more than that, always a stimulating guru. And that's why this president was really out of this world. I don't think India till now had such president who motivated so many people and inspired the whole society. Today, let me confess that I'm quite excited to congratulate the winners of the Young Research Fellowships. And remember, they come from Kanpur to Solapur to Coimbatore, the vast canvas of our country. And I really would like to take their names and congratulate them. Shruti, Aarti, Naveen, Janani, Kartika, Swapnil and Sunil, and Raja Balasaraswati, Venkata Lakshmi, Bhagyashri, and Vedant. And now, based on this, you would remember probably what Ashok said just a few moments back, that majority of these young research fellows are women. And it's a good sign. These girls tomorrow will probably guide us, our society, which will be more balanced and not one-sided. As I said, I feel rather emotional to have Ashok Mangotra, a former Secretary of Ministry of Home Affairs, former Joint Secretary to the Ministry of Non-Conventional Energy Resources, and former Joint Secretary to the late President of India, Dr. Abdul Kalam. I had very close times with him, and he had a close time with Dr. Abdul Kalam for more than 5 years in the Rashtrapati Bhavan, and that's where I first met Ashok. And Ashok had numerous stories with Dr. Kalam. I probably only knew a fraction of it. Ashok not only has done a close scrutiny of your all submissions of the research proposals for the final selection of more than hundreds applications received and shortlisted by the team of Dr. Vinita Apte. But what Ashok told me, and he did mention that in his talk, was that he judged each and every application from the lens of Dr. Kalam. So you are fortunate. You are not judged by somebody who had a chart in front of them and gave you the marks out of 10. How much for innovation, how much for hard work, how much for the idea, how much for the chemistry part of it and physics part of it, but from the lens of Dr. Kalam. So you're so fortunate. So I congratulate again for you for the same thing. I wish that Ashok remains as a jury forever for TALE's fellowship programs in the coming years. Ashok had a huge number of stories. I have a very small number which I'm going to tell you something about. Dr. Kalam literally fetched me out of the United Nations global jungle, and Ashok was mostly responsible for fetch me out. I didn't know Ashok before that. I knew him only when I got a phone call from Rashtrapati Bhavan when I was in Paris. I was working in United Nations Environment Program, and Ashok calls me and tells me that President wants to meet me. Look, I missed my heartbeat, I must confess. But I did not miss the opportunity to meet him at my first possible instance. And that was at the VIP lounge of the airport, from where both of us were traveling in a different direction. He later graciously and enthusiastically organized a meeting of experts at Rashtrapati Bhavan with help of course, again Ashok, where he organized a demonstration of CFC and HFC free solar vaccine cooler that worked on a DC compressor. Bit technical, but I'm ventured to say all those things because all of you are technical people. That particular solar vaccine cooler was developed by my team in UNEP along with number of agencies, including UN agencies like WHO and UNICEF. And I'm sure, as Ashok said it correctly, that if Dr. Kalam would have been alive today, he would have said, Dr. Shende, and that time I was not doctor, but he called me. He says, Dr. Shende, let us utilize your solar vaccine cooler to reach the poorest of poor and remotest of remote places in India to take this COVID-19 vaccine. I'm sure he would have said that. We today resolve in TERRE Policy Centre to make this event of Dr. APJ Kalam Research Fellowship an annual event. Over the last 5 years, India has moved nearly 30 places up the list of countries in terms of global ranking by Innovation Index. That takes into consideration, among other things, the research activities like you young people, and your capabilities. We have moved 30 places up over the last 5 years, but we are still halfway to come on the top. We have the potential. We can rise quickly because our DNA is closely related to the nature and the ecosystems where we live. Nature itself is a profound and valuable treasure to learn from. Secondly, your young minds are agile in grasping the lessons and agile in learning. No one had an ability to understand these dimensions of young researchers in India than Dr. Kalam, who himself rose in a village in natural surrounding, boatman to India's most revered defense strategist and a missile scientist, and then came on Rashtrapati Bhavan as the topmost politician of India. And such speedy transformation that took place in Dr. Abdul Kalam's life can also bring India up on the top in innovation if you learn from the nature, if you learn from the laboratory of the nature. Finally, let me state that these fellowships are going to be different. As Dr. Vinita Apte told you, we would be tracking the progress of your research. from your laboratories and also bringing, if possible, in a commercial scale. We will be providing you one separate page on our website for each one of you to share your experience, progress. We'll provide you a mentor, and we'll also provide you one financial partner, maybe in a form of institutes, or maybe in a form of a donor, or maybe in a form of a group of people, so that you progress in your research. And then we fulfill the dream of our beloved Prime Minister Modi on Atmanirbhar Bharat. We have already become Atmanirbhar in nuclear and space technologies, which was a dream of Dr. Abdul Kalam. Now we should become Atmanirbhar in a simple things like what we learned from you, that some of you are working on what is called as the biologically active leather, the algal air purification, and number of innovations in a chemistry which was amazing. Many call Dr. Kalam as a missile man because he was involved in Agni, Prithvi, Akash, Trishul, and Nag missiles. But apart from being a man of missiles, for me, and I'm sure Ashok will agree, he was a man of missiles, but he was also a man of masses. His inspiring and fierce wings of fire that took him high in the sky, he also had a beautiful wings of butterfly that took him far, not only high. I would like to end by giving, not getting more emotional again, but telling you a small anecdote of my Delhi experience, because Ashok lives in Delhi and I always call him Delhi Wala, and he calls me Pune Wala, not of Serum Institute, but because I live in Pune now. You know, after my United Nations days, I used to go to Delhi very often to meet the ministers, his secretaries, and a lot of bureaucrats. And then in the evening at the end, Ashok will call me, hey, did you meet this guy? That kind of thing. But at the end of the day, after meeting so many people, I used to get a headache. Reason was simple. Everybody used to talk in a different way. And nobody talked about implementation or practical things. And I used to get such a headache saying that how this country runs. And then you know what I used to do? I used to call a doctor who was also a doctor for Dr. Abdul Kalam. That was absolutely informal relation. And Ashok probably didn't know about it. And I used to tell him that I'm getting a slightly feverish and headache. Can you suggest me something? And he used to immediately tell me what medicine to be taken. And I used to take that medicine, that tablet, and next day I was fresh. Again meeting ministers and bureaucrats and secretaries. Then I realized why Dr. Abdul Kalam never gets fed up in Delhi. Because he had a good doctor to get, and he had a medicine headache when you keep on meeting other politicians. Well, very, very finally, the topic of the lecture of Dr. Abdul Kalam when he said goodbye to me, I don't know how many of you remember that. That title was Creating a Livable Planet Earth. That in fact has become my own lifelong objective, and that also of TERRE Policy Centre. And I'm sure Ashok is also fighting for the same. Again, congratulating you and thank you for listening to me.